Yeah, so we are a small enterprise. So we have the challenges of trying to keep ourselves as competitive in the market as possible. There are different ways of obviously looking at this. One of the things that kick-started us into only recently having solar panels installed was obviously the huge hike in electricity prices. We literally went overnight from 14 odd pence a kilowatt hour up to 91 pence a kilowatt hour, which had a huge impact on the business. Luckily, the government did step in and help sort of take the very top end of that off. But, you know, even with what we've done in the last, we've been running just over 3 weeks, and it's given us an average, and I know it's the summer at the moment, but it has given us an average of over 36% of our requirement for electricity. That's a green electricity power that we have now in our hands. Probably my only wish is that we had a bigger roof to put more panels up. But there's, you know, there are other things. Obviously, Bob's been flashing around the TM66, which I've been keeping my ears very close to what's going on with that. And it did sort of start me to sort of venture around and have a look to see how circular we were with some of the things that we had done for many years. And one of the big things is scrap. We produce a lot of products in brass. We aim for the decorative market. That is our aim and biggest market. And because we produce so many different things in brass, there is always a scrap element that goes back. Now, we sell back direct to mill. And I looked into our main supplier, Illuminated Roundtable, and asked them if they got any information regards on how they were looking at being sort of in a green credential for manufacturing. And they actually really amazed me with some of the statistics they came up with. One of the big ones was obviously their use of recycled material. We try and throw back as much as we can, and we try and throw it back as clean as possible. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. We have to obviously separate different types of scrap, be that it be just flat strip, or even if it's swarf. The swarf, we can even break down even more from that, because obviously when you're running a job, you're actually producing subsoil or oils within that mix, and that gets contaminated with the swarf. Now, we spin and separate. That gives us a reuse of oils, which is a bonus because we all know that oil is also very expensive, and also gives us a better price of the scrap going back. But the best statistic that I heard from Veland was the fact that by 2030, they are hoping to achieve that their remetalling is at least 90% of scrap material, which I think is huge. I hope they can make it.
Simon, that's just brilliant, because that's really coming down to, in some ways, literally nuts and bolts. Mm. So the driver there was the wish to be sustainable, or it linked into saving costs?
Both, really. I think, you know, I think we're all...
What changed? Sustainability or the cost? What made you change, honestly?
Sustainability.
Yeah.
And then triggered by cost.
And then basically you started measuring, and what you can measure, you can manage.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to break out to Matt, who didn't know I was about to do this, but there's some brilliantly talking about, you know, the economics of a lathe and the swarf. You have to deal with these enormous, long, global supply chains. How do you do what he's just done at that distance?
It's a challenge, Bob, and I think the question regarding how can we environmentally impact this would be the original right question. When you're dealing with such a complex supply chain, both in terms of componentry and finished goods, it requires not only diligence and efficiencies within your own plant, but you're also you're dealing with people where you're interrogating their own business practices as well. And getting that information is sometimes difficult. Without playing the nationalistic card, undoubtedly, localized manufacturing is definitely going to play into the hands of a sustainable and environmental model. Having said that, we have to remember that cost is still very much in the heart of our clients' decision-making process. I think the UK specifically right now is emotionally attached to wanting localized manufacturing and to be supportive of environmental and sustainable products, both in terms of lighting and on a domestic basis as consumers. I don't think, I don't think we've all made the journey into wanting and being prepared to pay more money for that tick in the box.
I don't think it's just us paying more, is it? Is the end customer prepared to pay more?
Yeah.
Do they understand that value proposition?
Yeah. We as consumers as well as manufacturers, I think generally we all support and understand the merits associated with localized manufacturing, green processes, and whether it's our sub-suppliers that are operating within the guidelines that we want them to, it does come currently at a price because it's not in mainstream manufacturing. But it's a very complex question. Sorry, Bob, it's a great question, but it's a complex answer because dealing with such a wide supply chain does bring difficulties and requires so much policing internally.
And education as well, helping those second and third tier component manufacturers to understand why, monitoring those scrap and rework rates, helping them to see the benefit for them as a business as well, the efficiencies it can give to them.
And just to pick up on something Matt said, it's very clear, when we were working on TM6, it's very clear that a lot of the motivation for the EU to go to a circular economy is reshoring jobs. And you can't really deliver circular economy unless you have at least a good tech department and spares, et cetera, in the local country. So we can have long supply chains. Graham, I believe you wanted to step in.
I agree exactly with what Matt said. The complexity. I think sustainable procurement is a thing by itself and has to be treated as a thing by itself. I know, we interviewed our 34 top suppliers with that in mind and asked them about what they do and where they're going. And I think any business now has to do that and has to go down the route of where you're getting it from. I think the difficult will be is that I've got friends who would suggest that we don't buy from certain countries because of their political agenda or their human rights agenda. But at the end of the day, we all do it. And it's about are you willing to walk the walk, talk the talk? And that does cost money, unfortunately.
Pay for it.
And you have to pay for it. So that'll be the discussion point